I was talking with Dan Johnson on a podcast the other night, and he asked me about unfinished business and unfulfilled goals. And we started talking about the goal of shooting a 200-inch buck on public land, and how I've had so many opportunities and always seem to have failed. I think everybody dreams of that gigantic buck. You know, over the years, I've had no problem shooting 150, 160, even a few 170, and one in the 180s. But meeting that 200-inch mark, for some reason, every time I run across one of those bucks, something goes wrong. On today's video, I'd like to take you along on a hunt. It's kind of different than the normal ones that I do, and show you the hunt for a 200-inch whitetail. It's a strange hunt. It's not the norm, but most of the time when you run into those absolute giants, it's some strange scenario. Those of you who know me best know that I love bear hunting just about as much as I love deer hunting. When I'm bear hunting, I run across a lot of deer. A lot of deer come into the bear baits. They try to get the logs open, and they especially hit them after the bears have opened them up. Believe it or not, they eat the donuts, the bread, and the grains and stuff that we put out for the bears. And it's kind of surprising that they even come into the bear baits, because you know, wolves come in, bears are in there, and you'll see the deer on the camera, you know, 20 minutes after a wolf leaves, which you would think they wouldn't go anywhere near where it smells like wolf. This is a spot where I bear hunted last year, and I set up for bears similar to the way I set up for deer. There's some points that go down into the swamp here, and down in that cool swamp in September is where the bears lay. Well, that's the same kind of spots bucks like. And ironically, we have some good buck bedding on the hills behind us here. So it shouldn't have surprised me when a buck showed up on the bear bait eating donuts, right? There's one such buck that hit these bear baits that was real special to me. The bear bait buck. That buck, we went out to bait towards the end of May. I was with Chris Conroy and his kid Bryce, and we were down setting the bait up, and Bryce comes down with his friend and says, we just saw a big buck cross the logging road up the hill. And I kind of chuckled and said, bucks don't even have racks yet, it's May. And he said, well, this one did. He says it had a rack about this wide, no points, but big and heavy. And I kind of took that to note, but didn't think much of it until we started checking the cameras, and that buck was showing up on the cameras. And he just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Every week we'd check the cameras, he'd be on it. And it was getting to be a regular basis. He just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon he was in hard antler. And it was just about deer season. And I know they got a baiting law in Clark County. This is in Clark County Forest. So I was getting a little concerned with it because the buck had grown 18 points, and I really wanted to go after him. So I called the DNR warden for Clark County, and I asked him, you know, do I have to remove this bait to hunt this deer in this area? What do I got to do here? And he said, Dan, is the bear bait legal? Are you enclosing it
when you leave, you know, are you following all the rules? I said, yes. He said, then I don't care if you shoot that deer right over the bait. I don't care if you shoot it next to it or whatever. I knew he was coming in every day, and he was especially coming in right after I baited. I noticed I'd bait, and he'd come in within an hour or two. So I knew he was listening and stuff. So I was trying to figure out how to do this without pre-scouting the area too much, because I didn't want to kick him out of here. So I figured the best way was to come in here, bait it early, like late morning for bear, and then immediately slide up a tree. So that he thinks I baited and left. And I came down the regular trail. I thought about coming in through the thick stuff, didn't. I came right down the regular trail like I did all the time, just so I wouldn't spook them. And when I came in here, I baited, and then I slid over here, put my stuff down, and slid up this dead tree here. Take a look at that tree. That dead tree up, you know, right about where the bark's falling off, right where it starts having bark again, it's light colored. I put my stand right there. I've been bear baiting up here all year since it opened back in like early summer. I can hear something get up on this hill and pace around. I hear that buck get up in his bed and start walking this way, kind of marching, heavy-footed. And it doesn't take but a couple minutes, I can see his rack coming through the pine trees. And you can tell he's on full alert. He watched me come down the hill. He watched me come down here. He watched me bait. He never saw me leave. He got to about 15 yards right behind a pine tree here, and I was just sitting there waiting to shoot. All of a sudden he stomped and just heavy walked over up the hill a little ways, blew a couple times, and then heavy walked. And then for the next 3 weeks, he only showed up on camera at night. So here's where we had the bait log. My tree is right there, that dead one. And I was just sitting there nestled into the pine with the stand turned a little bit into the pine tree. And the buck was bedding right up on the hill, and my axis is right down here on this trail. And he was watching me from right up there. And you can follow the rub line right back to him. He's got rubs on all these trees. Some of them are hard to see, but if you look, this one's got some nicks on it. But look, they're that high. That's a 3-year-old. You see where his tines hit way up because he's got such high tines. And there's another one right there. This tree's all tickled with tine marks. Look how high they go. And this is a really hard tree.
So when we come up here, walk up my access trail, right over here I can see rubs, and they go right up this rub line here. You see those rubs way back there? And he was bedding right up there watching me. Here's one of his trails. During the season he was coming through back here. See this tree all tore up? This one, that one, and so forth. And his bed's right up there, up on that hill. During the season he's bedding right up here on this transition, on this hill. Look right down there, those pine trees are where I was hunting, so you could watch me walk right in here. And actually, the day we saw him, the first day we came back here, we got there to turn in, and he walked out right here, so I should have known better. So even I make mistakes. But what I do is I learn from them. That's the difference between me and other people. So I'm back here right now, tracking down this deer, finding his beds, and looking and seeing what my mistakes were so that they don't happen again. I'm getting a plan together to kill this thing this coming fall. Hopefully I'm able to get on him again. This is a huge woods. It's probably intimidating to most people because it's huge. I mean, you can walk for miles out here. But what people don't understand is those deer don't go for miles. They hang in an area. Just like you go to the same areas and the same woods and hunt because you get to know an area, well, deer hangs in the same area because he knows it. I was a little afraid this deer was wintering someplace else, but he's not. He's living right here. And I can see why he chose this spot, because looking around here, this is the only place I'm seeing mature oak trees. So I can see why he's hanging here early season. Hopefully we get a little acorn drop this fall. This year, I'm going back at it. I came out here, I confirmed that he made it. I haven't found his shed antlers, but I'm finding his big tracks everywhere in here. And I'm finding rubs that were done late season. I'm pretty sure that buck made it. He's still here. And I'm also pretty sure by looking at that thing's, the height of his rubs, and by looking at his tracks, I think he's a 3-year-old. And if he's a 3-year-old, he's going to put on even more antler this year. And I'm going to go after him full force right away. And I'm out here right now looking at his beds, figuring out where he's bedding, really learning the lay of the land. And this fall, I'm going to try and beat the other guy that comes back here to him. That buck was bedded watching that bear bait on a hill, and he was literally watching me bait, and I should have known, because when I'd bait, he'd be on that camera a half an hour later. But I figured he was listening to me. He was watching me. He was sitting on that hill watching me. Yeah. And I found that out when I hunted him.
Right. Right. Now that behavior probably was changed a bit due to the fact that he was monitoring that bait pile, but it's monitoring a food source, you know.
Well, he's monitoring humans.
Yeah.
He knew that bait ain't just flying out of a tree going there.
Right.
He knew I was putting it there. And what happened is I went in there, baited, and didn't leave. I went up a tree. Because he was hitting that bear bait, and I knew it, and I knew he was hitting it every day. So why not just sit there? Yeah. And that's what I did. But in hindsight, I couldn't make up my mind. And I kept thinking, should I come through this thick, there's a thick cutover, clear cut behind there that was really thick that I knew the buck wasn't bedding in. He wasn't coming out of that. And I could have came right up in that thick stuff, went up a tree with the wind perfect and been set up perfect. But I figured he comes in every day right after I bait. I just go in there, bait, climb up the tree, and he'll come waltzing in. And he did, but he knew I was there.
Yeah.
He came in stomping, looking in the trees, and he busted me.
Yeah.
And then it was game on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of regret not like quitting my job and just spending the rest of the year up there hunting.
There was one trip where I went all the way up there to hunt him. I checked the forecast and stuff, drove, and I mean, this is, was it a couple hundred miles?
Yeah.
I drive there, get there, and the wind is not doing what's forecasted. I sat there for half an hour and I couldn't get the wind to go the right way. I got back in my truck, drove 200 miles home rather than hunt him.
So I don't know what to make of the wind, but I had to get out of there. It wasn't changing. I gave it about 10 minutes and it just kept getting worse and worse. I'm out here by the road and I'm looking at the wind on the tree tips. It's still blowing east. So I'm calling it. This buck's probably gotten enough warning from me.
That's the hard part about hunting distant bucks.
Right. Right. The time commitment you're putting in, and you got to make sure that the situation is right, even though you're putting in a great amount of distance to get to them.
Well, that area is known for little forkhorns. It's
Yeah.
known for guys pounding it, and bucks don't get any size. And somehow this freak grew to maturity, and he happened to be the deer that could grow a well over 200-inch rack.
Right.
And what are the odds?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then to have them just camp out on your bear bait. Yeah. And every other deer that was in here I had come in daylight, but not him again. And I kept working at it, but at the same time frame, there was a hunter over further who's got an illegal set. He's got a permanent stand, and he's got it over a big pile of bait, and he's got a camera on it. It's illegal to bait here. It's like a $500 fine. There's a camera in that tree watching the bait, and his stands are up there in that tree right there. And that's what you got to contend with when it's a giant buck like that. So that's what that guy's doing, is he's after that buck. And that's why he was so aggressive about this spot. So I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna contend with that guy this year. Left his camera here and his stands in the tree. It's pretty obvious he's gonna be back. He's not supposed to be doing that, but I minded my own business, but he didn't. He came in here, put flags all over my trail, marked where I park and stuff. It was real aggressive about keeping me out of here. When he started coming back here to check on me, that buck moved on, got real nocturnal. I started getting him back on camera on the bear bait later in the season, but it was always in the middle of the night. And last year, I was baiting for a friend, and we put his bear bait here, and we put a camera over to see what would happen. And the buck showed up once during the summer. I think it was in July. No, early August probably. And he didn't go to the bait. I just got a picture of him standing behind the pine tree over here looking at it. And he never came back again. And there was no acorns last year. And right now, we're up here scouting. We got bear tags again this year. And none of his rubs are here at all. I hunted him last year, and there was no sign of him, but I hunted his bedding areas, and I had bucks come through, but not him. And I think he's gone. I hunted that buck for 2 years, 2 seasons. You know, and as often as the case, they just disappear, and you sit back and wonder whatever happened to them. You know, do me a favor, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see on the channel. Thanks, see ya.